like self-reporting graduation rates. School's in charge of graduation rates.
Right.
They can have whatever graduation rate they want. It doesn't have any relationship to students being more or less successful. But anyways, I thought we could look at, did suspensions decrease? Did fights decrease? And so I can remember the person in charge of it going, why would we want to do that? I go, well, you remember
Why
the
would
chart?
we want to look at the data?
Right. And he said, you remember the chart? You argued this, so let's see if the prediction,
Yeah.
the whole thesis for the whole program,
Getting closer.
your whole marketing program to suck me into this, whether it was true or not. And I said, and I'm not challenging the program. I'm looking at if it's working, then let's ramp it up.
Right.
If it's not working, let's find out why and
Make your adjustments.
right,
to your,
adjust. Going, well, I know it's working. I go, well, how do you know? Well, it just feels like it's working. Well, stupid me pushed it
Yeah.
all the way up to the principal saying, we're spending all this time and money
Right.
on a program. Let's measure it. And it would be easy to measure. Well, that would be up to guidance, to counseling to do that. I said, well, they're not interested in doing it. Well, I guess we're not going to do it. And I do remember the director of guidance saying to me, why would we want to do that?
Yeah. Why would
Just to see if it works? So that's what I mean when in education, we're not interested in results. We talk about results, but we're not interested in measuring them. Okay.
I mean, I think that when we do, it's all very short term.
Mm-hmm.
We measure. We're very
But
good
why?
at from beginning a unit to end a unit, which maybe isn't even a thing we used to do. That might be I know at least in my experience from when I was in school. Maybe this cycle goes longer than this, but I know that when I was in school there was almost no pre-assessment, right? But you do your quiz partway through, your test at the end, and so you'd get a sense of growth. I think, and one of the things that has motivated me to do the podcast is to try to talk to people about school and education, and they're not the same, right? But talk later. So teachers who can reflect. Well, I don't know if they're the opposite, but I know they're not the same, and thinking about, if, I think I said this when I was talking with Jessica Berg, that if you can teach and then the kids graduate and you can promptly forget that they exist, or they exist just as like a memory of a thing they said, like, that's a person who's doing things. And so I think that our results should be measured more in terms of outcomes in life, or maybe, and this might allow for the qualitative thing we were talking about, a satisfaction with your experience once you've had enough life experience or opportunity to get a job to determine if it was useful. There are a lot of kids who hate high school and later on see value in it and wish they'd done it differently. There are a lot of kids who hate high school and later on say, no, that was terrible, that was stupid. Do they get a job or not? Whatever. We should talk to people when they're 30 or 35 or whatever. How do you feel about school now? Now, that's obviously, you're gonna forget some of the little stuff, and maybe the bullying might get blown out of proportion in your memory, and we always have to adjust.
Or you forget it.
And it's probably both in most cases. But 10, 12, 15 years later, do you think that served you well? And then, are you using it in your job?
Okay, so what is the goal then of K through 12 education, or just high school?
That's one of my biggest concerns with my job, is that no one seems to know what I'm supposed to do, which is why I just do what I think I'm supposed to do, and so far so good. There's nothing wood here to knock on, but hopefully no one bothers.
Actually, on Jeopardy the other night, I found out doing the head was actually
that's my next. But no, I think. I mean, something as simple as every time we catch a questionable snow day, get on Facebook and go to a parents group, or go look at the county Twitter and look at how many people freak out. Why are these kids off? Because we're babysitters. We're babysitters. And in some cases, we're providing hygiene stuff or healthcare stuff. For some of these kids, we're getting them eyeglasses. Like, is that what we're supposed to do?
That's certainly a valuable function that we do, but then are we the only institution or process that could do that?
And there was an article, I want to say that I read this, and now that I'm thinking about it, I either should have sent it to you, or it's possible that you sent it to me in the first place. But it was like I think they call her the Chancellor of all British schools. She's basically the national superintendent. And it was maybe last fall. She gave a speech essentially saying that schools are doing too much. We cannot raise your kids. We can't provide health care.
Yeah.
We can't, like, if we're serious about providing some academic improvement and some skills-based stuff, then we can't keep doing all of these other things. We can't be your psychologist and your cook and your this and that. And I thought, in a way that's harsh, but at least someone's saying something specific and honest, because I don't understand what our purpose is right now.
So, given that, then, how do you ask the 30-year-old whether school was successful for them?
What are you doing now? Do you use things that you got from school, either the direct knowledge or the broader skills that came from it? And if you hadn't been in school, if school wasn't an option, you didn't have the opportunity, whatever else you think you would have done with your time, do you think that would have served you better?
But that puts you and me in the position of shooting for a goal that neither of us know what it is, because it's individual to each of those 30-year-olds.
Well, we already don't know the goal.
Well, right. So don't you see that as an inherent problem in forcing 50 million students at a time to sit in a classroom for 6 to 7 hours every day, or 180 days a year, and make school the central, just like what you were referencing, that it does so much.
Right.
And it is a huge central element of our culture.
Yeah. Schools bind local communities more than anything else at this point in our culture.
Okay, for good or bad, or for
Both.
Yeah, right,
Both.
yeah. But so here's the thing, and it gets back to results. Results become unimportant when you can't tell what the results should be.
Right.
So here's the thing, and a regular complaint of teachers and parents and students are what we call fads, education fads, PBL. Right now, project-based learning.
Yeah.
How is that different than PL, which is personalized learning? And actually, if you read Loudoun Valley, parents have a Facebook page.
Oh yeah, they're free roaming time.
Oh yeah, where
everybody's
it's just chaos,
vaping
it's,
in the bathrooms and
I really am wondering what's going on there.
Running wild.
But as I watched the responses from school board members and from principals on that page or in meetings, they were mixing PBL and PL together. They don't even know what the distinctions are.
You only really need to know all the acronyms. And I think it was in the my friend Michaela Wojcik about the PBIS.
Yeah.
And she made the joke about, keeping a journal of all the acronyms,
right,
and having to keep up. And the only time you really need those is if you're sitting in a meeting with administrators, or, and I guess it's still meeting with administrators, you're applying for a job.
Yeah.
That's, how do you get a job?
You just have to speak the
teaching
lingo
in a school. Yeah. Just
and
jargon of the day.
And the person interviewing you doesn't really care about what those things are. They just want someone that sounds like they know what they're talking
right.
about, because they're going to represent them. But so here's the thing. When you don't know what the results are supposed to be, and therefore you can't measure them, it seems unsurprising then that we take the approach of me when I was 10 years old, sitting at the table with Brussels sprouts and succotash and other crap I didn't want to eat. What do? You push it around on the plate. You move it around. You make it look like it's done something.
You convince Dad that you need to get a dog.
Well,
start slipping there.
Yeah, someplace I had those stupid Brussels sprouts.
Yeah.
But that's what I've observed in education, is that we just push the food around on the plate. Right. It's a plate of acronyms in this case, as Michaela said. But we do that, and also think of the advantage that we have. The audience changes every year, and significantly every 3 to 4 to 5 years, as students and their families
right.
move into and out of our world.
Right.
So now, I think the hardest job that administrators have is PR with families.
Right.
And I wouldn't want to do it because I'd have to shower every day.
Yeah.
But see, if we don't know what the results are supposed to be, how can we possibly know whether we're actually being effective without just focusing on onanism and narcissism?
Well, and this is more devil's advocate than anything, so I'm not sure if I believe this, but to take a page out of, I'm going to say your book, but it's probably mine too in this way, if almost everything about the world is measurably better, and, you know, it might be correlation and not causation, but you have more kids going to more school, more of them graduating school, and testing data, flawed as it is, that indicates that there's at least some improvement occurring. If we look around and we say we're living longer, we have more access to more goods, to more services, to more of the rest, that there's less violence, there's less disease, that if all of those other things are going well, and it coincides with the increase in education, and I'm not saying that it's a direct cause
There's
at
no
all.
increase in education.
But sure, more kids go to school now than did 60 years ago. Kids stay in school longer.
But you're assuming that that actually produces goods.
Well, no,
benefits.
I'm not. I'm just saying that
What if
the
it's
two are
producing-
moving together. It could just be, it could be a random correlation.
What if it's producing
but-
more harms? What if we didn't have school and that resulted in even better benefits to
It could.
culture, to society?
But anytime
To
you see
individuals.
a teacher strike, that lasts more than a few days, you see crime rates go up, and visits to the hospital, and visits to the food bank,
Okay,
and
if all of that,
all
the daycare sitters, went out to strike,
No, no,
you'd see the
and
same
I'm not
thing.
saying that I believe
you'd
that
see toddlers
specifically.
pillaging, Giant and Harris Theater.
No, and I'm not saying that I specifically believe it's true. I'm just saying that if we see that so many other things are getting better, whether school's getting better, getting worse, or probably most likely just staying the same, right? But more people are involved, or at least are involved for longer. And now most people are graduating as opposed to finishing in 8th to 10th grade. In theory, that could be a good thing.
It could be, but then let's look at it from another perspective. Slavery had its benefits.
Yeah.
It definitely kept what many people perceived as an undesirable element of the population under control, off the streets. They weren't committing crimes because the punishments would be draconian,
Right.
to say the least. Does the civility of society, the peacefulness of it that results from that, does that make slavery moral? And this is not...
Is this the
an
time to do the
absurd-
consequentialist thing? Is that...
No, this is actually the morality of it. This is assuming then that making children
Yeah.
sit in classrooms the bulk of their lifetime, at least their waking lifetime,
Right.
that it's moral. What if it's immoral?
Do you think, and there's obviously a chance, but do you think that it is likely that in 100 or 150 years we'll look at today's school model the way we currently look back at child labor? Like the ending of child labor is one of the things that led to more schools, because people had to figure out what to do with their kids. That's part of the beginning of our whole job as babysitters, was when you end child labor, people have to figure out what to do with their kids, and so schools start looking like even better options, right? But if
Why
we
would
say
chi-
child labor is bad, then in
Well,
100
maybe,
years...
but is that the reason why child labor ended? Because we had a moral epiphany.
I think for some people, and I think it's
certainly
I think
there
it's
were
one of the...
crusaders against it, but
I think some of it has to do with wage issues. A lot of it's economic, but it's not a coincidence that a lot of those changes coincide with women exerting greater political influence. Women's suffrage
okay.
before the right to vote. That basically you can credit politically active women for most of the child labor laws, or at least beginning them.
Oh, I agree, but
Let's
let's put it this way: the women's movement, 50s, 60s, and 70s.
Right.
Did women's greater flexibility and expansion of role in society, was that because of sudden enlightenment, or was it because of the availability of contraception? Now, that's a whole other that's a whole discussion I'm not going to get into today. I'm just saying that there are practical reasons why things in society change too. Like, why did women get the right to vote? Well, the Republicans needed more voters.
Right.
And they were ahead of the game as far as the Democrats. So
That's where Democrats now want to lower the voting age to 16.
exactly,
right?
because they perceive that adolescents will more likely
In their
vote
youth.
blue, red. Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, so here's the thing: if we didn't have education the way it is right now, okay,
Right.
would you? And it was your job, and I think I asked you this on Facebook or in a message. Would you, if it was up to you to design what that education process for humans would be? And I'm not just saying, specifically that age,
Right.
From 0 on, that would you choose to put children in classrooms in parallel rows for 6-7 hours a day, staring ahead, where the research, and again, whether it's valid or not, where research claims that the most common utterance of a student is yes and no.
Right.
Okay, would you choose that model?
I would for 2 or 3 hours a day. Not for the whole day.
Okay, but so why not for the whole?